meditate on this. The subconscious mind is like a black hole. It's a vacuum. It pulls in everything that crosses its path. The portals or gateways to the subconscious mind exist on the human body, in the human body. Some of them are called ears, some of them are called eyes. And you receive certain signals and things and messages, etc., through these senses, through these tools for senses, sight, hearing, etc. But no matter what you do, no matter what you put in front of your ears, no matter what you put in front of your eyes, just understand that the subconscious mind is going to receive that, and it's going to be embedded within you in perpetuity. It's going to be with you forever. And the people in power know this. The ruling class know this, and they do a damn good job of putting things in there that are not going to lead to quality of thought. It's important that you take control of this and try to embed things with high quality of thought into your subconscious mind, so that when they come back to the surface, when they come back, they pop out on the other side, they're fruitful. The things that are good for you, things that lead to quality of thought. So try to embed good things in your subconscious mind. Now that we know we have to program the subconscious mind, do that consciously, the next question becomes, with what? I believe we need to start with music. Music is very natural. Everybody loves music. They're even treating dementia with music, because music can take you to the past, bring you to memories, the vibe. Everything is just seems to come into focus clearly. It's easily visualized when you put music and have a soundtrack to your life. And so what type of music do we listen to? You know, it's part of our daily ritual. It's part of our daily dealings in programming the subconscious mind. The type of music we listen to is very important. And think about quality of thought. Is your music going to nurture the idea of quality of thought? Or is it ratchet? Is it supremely ghetto? Is it trash? Or is it breathing life into you? Right? It's the difference between listening to, you know, something that's promoting death as to something that's promoting life. Looking at some of the neurological effects that happen when you listen to certain types of music, nourishing the brain with that type of music. The TV shows you watch, the movies you watch. What type of shows do you watch, and how are you inspired by them? What are the images that are being implanted in your subconscious mind from the movies and TV and the media that you watch, from the things you watch on YouTube, etc., etc. If you look at one of those controversial stories about TikTok, I said that Chinese people, or the Chinese Communist Party, whatever, has a different algorithm than the one for the Western nations. The one in the Western nations, the kids are watching videos that go viral, doing pranks and all types of silly stuff. And China's algorithm is showing kids completing puzzles and doing math. These are the things they're promoting because they understand the programming of the subconscious mind is very important for the future of your people and where they're going. So with that same concept in mind, you know, what type of media are you always being influenced by? What type of media do you constantly force yourself to be influenced by? You know, what if we saw images of love all the time instead of images of destruction, war, etc., etc.?
What type of media is Hotep Jesus influenced by?
I like the old stuff. I like the classics. Mostly written work, literature. That's the type of stuff I listen to. I listen to a lot of lectures. You know, one of my favorite lecturers is John Henry Clark, Dr. Kaba Kamene. Those are like two of my faves. I like listening to scholarly work, scholarly teachers. I go to bed to to chess videos, but I also need some gangster in my life. You know, I'm not perfect, but I need some, I need some cartel gang member, type programming. This is, that's the stuff I happen to like. I like violent movies. I like heists. I like heist movies, like The Italian Job and Ocean's 11 and, those types of things. I like military movies. Like, I thought the new Top Gun was amazing. But I also try to be conscious of what I'm seeing, and so, what's clear is we're gonna come across some content that is not going to nurture quality or high quality of thought. So what we have to do is we have to wrap this stuff with labels. So what you can do is when an image appears before your subconscious mind, what we can do is we can frame it. So when it gets embedded and it gets stored within your mental hard drive, it's filed in a folder, marked bad, marked good, marked to question, marked, you can label these things. So sometimes when things come into our subconscious mind, we don't frame it, we don't put a label on it. I think we have to say, okay, if I'm watching a movie and they're murdering people, say for instance, as we're watching this, we got to label that bad. This is bad. This is no bueno, right? And even some labels that your personal opinion might weigh in on, and how you manage this stuff logically. So even though everything is going to be received by your subconscious mind, and some things you may enjoy, some pieces of content you may enjoy.
Yeah, I can try to get that handled for you. Again, it's only my second day, so if you can give me a second. How am I supposed to do this? How the hell are we supposed to do this by 5 o'clock?
I have no clue.
Is that possible? Hey, do you have the password to... How'd you finish all your work already?
He's not tapped in. How'd you get that done so quick?
They think they're gonna be able to budget that?
It's money. That's money right there, you understand?
You guys finished your work 6 hours early?
He's not tapped in.
So they plan the J6 hearing same time as the House Financial Subcommittee hearing when we're talking about the most important bill of our lifetime. The Grift Report starts now.
2, 1, boom. Hotep Jesus.
Of all the Jesuses I know, he's the Hotepiest. Social scientist and YouTube host, Hotep Jesus.
How the fuck do you get a name like Hotep Jesus?
The one and only Hotep Jesus.
Ryan Sharp, better known to the world as Hotep Jesus.
Hotep Jesus. Hotep Jesus. Hotep Jesus.
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
Somebody said, what do you think you are, some kind of Hotep Jesus?
Ooh,
and
that's
I was
good.
Just like, ooh, that's sexy. Yes, I do think I'm Hotep Jesus. What's up, people? Welcome to the Grift Report. I'm your host, the Grift guy, Hotep Jesus.
Hotep Jesus. Hotep Jesus. Hotep Jesus.
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
Welcome to the Grift Report. Disclaimer, this stream contains adult... Hold on, wait. Whoa, wait. That's not supposed to look like that. This stream contains adult humor and was created strictly for comedic and artistic purposes. No offense is intended toward any products and individuals featured in this video. What's up, people? Welcome back to the Grift Report. Another solid day of grifting upon us. We got a lot to talk about today. Let's just hop right into the story of the day. Mr. SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried. Let's pull this up on the screen here. Pull this up on the screen here.
I hadn't actually gotten a chance to review this article because I was watching a House hearing this morning in the CBDC. So let's take a look at this thing here. So it looks like the bankruptcy is looking to recover millions of dollars in fraudulently transferred and misappropriated funds. Now, remember, these are the same people that were sending money to the Democrats for the last election. So if the money of FTX, which was funneled into the Democratic Party, was fraudulently transferred and misappropriated, what does that say about our election? Yeah, we getting spicy today. Report on the real news, the stuff that nobody talks about. That's what we do over here, baby. It says the filing redacted in parts. Oh, why would it be redacted? Asked the court to award the FTX estate damages, the return of any property given or payment made to the parents of FTX in the past, and punitive damages resulting from conscious, willful, wanton, or malicious conduct. So the FTX estate, I think the estate got taken over. So it would be whoever's in charge of that operation now, which I believe is the same guy who handled the who's that guy back in the day that was running a Ponzi scheme? I think he handled the same guy that handled that one. So they got to get their money back. FTX Trading paid $18 million, inclusive of tax, fees, and costs for Blue Water, to which Bankman-Fried received title, as well as various expenses related to Blue Water totaling more than $90,000, the filing said. Filing also alleged that Bankman's command of tax law and unique understanding of the FTX Group's muddled corporate structure allowed him to facilitate the transfer of cash gift totaling $10 million to himself and Fried, consisting of the Alameda Limited funds. Wow. Bankman and Fried deployed their decades of experience as sophisticated law professors as the mother and father of SBF, and veneer of legitimacy, not to help the FTX Group, but rather to plunder it in order to enrich themselves in their pet causes. Bankman thus knew, or should have known, the perilous financial state of the FTX Group, even as he moonlighted as an actor in the Super Bowl commercial and extracted millions of dollars from the FTX Group. Both Bankman and Fried are professors at Stanford Law School. We know this to be true. This is a dangerous attempt to initiate This is a dangerous attempt to intimidate Joe and Barbara and undermine the jury process just days before their child's trial begins, attorneys for the parents said in the joint. Oh, please. These claims are completely false, and his massive team of lawyers, who are collectively running up countless millions of dollars in fees while returning relatively little to FTX clients, know better. Wow. This is going to be a massive fight in the courts. Says here in the filing, she used her access and influence to benefit Mind the Gap, an independent, expenditure-only political action committee that she co-founded in 2018, for which she served as president and chair. So right before election season comes around, she pops up this political action committee. Then there's allegedly stolen funds. The filing alleges tens of millions of dollars were contributed to MTG. MTG, again, Mind the Gap. And I showed this to you guys before about the statistical model that they created. That was from the auntie, I believe. Showed that to you before. Do I need to show it to you again? Let me see if I can show it to you again. SBF. Let's see if we can find it here. I always try to find this article over and over again. Last time I said it was Linda. Let's type in Bankman Oop, bank. Wait, it might be in my. I might have saved this. No, I didn't. I'm gonna save it this time though. Bankman, Sam Bankman-Fried, Bankman-Fried statistical model. And a lot of people are not aware of this. Is why I always want to show this. Statistical model. I think it might be. Is it Linda Fried? Statistical model election. Let's see if we can get that pop up. Oops. Election. Why does it say electron? Election. Here we go. Found it. Inside the secretive Silicon Valley group that has funneled over $20 million to Democrats, right? So this is the article I always point to, and then you'll see here, right here, it says Mind the Gap pitch donors on a statistical model. Everybody see that? Statistical model. That they tried to assess the premise. And basically what this does, it tells them who to fund in what districts in order to win those districts, right? So this comes off of, so let me go ahead and bookmark this so I never have to find it again. Crypto, done. Okay, cool. So I just want to make sure I showed you that because many people were wondering what happened with the election last time. They said it was rigged, and I don't want to deny that. However, I do not want to overlook the implication of the Sam Bankman-Fried family in the previous election, which they called the money ball of politics. Okay. Now let's come back. So that's the Mind the Gap project I just showed you about, which is statistical model. Basically how the statistical model worked is it told the Democrats where to put their donor money, right? And what they did was, because of these calculations that these geniuses put together, they were able to find out the exact moment that they should. So basically, let's say there's a deadline, right, where you have to have all your money in. So they'd send the money right before that deadline, so Republicans couldn't counteract that donor money. It would just appear the next day, and they're like, wait, we can't do anything about that. So very intelligent family over here. Unfortunately, it looks like they're caught up in some fraud. Well, fortunately, depending on which side of the aisle you're looking at this from. The total amount Bankman and Fried have misappropriated was not included in the filing. FTX alleged that either both of them may have expensed $1,200 per night hotel stays, plane tickets, and salaries. Bankman received an annual salary of $200,000 for his role as senior advisor in the FTX Foundation. So he was an advisor. And then they bought more than $18 million worth of property in the Bahamas. $5.5 million in FTX Group donations to Stanford University. So they funnel money to their friends over at the university. It says here in the filing, Bankman was included in the small group that received the Binance letter of intent and a calendar invitation for a meeting with Binance scheduled for November 9th, 2022. On November 10th, 2022, the day before the Chapter 11 filing, Bankman was scheduled to meet with the Bahamas Prime Minister, the filing said. So, I mean, this is all stuff we've speculated on in the past, and I hope all these people go to jail. In the meantime, we are still waiting for the House to come back into session here. We may make this a marathon stream today, but let's go inside the Grift bag. But first, I figured out how to stream on Twitter. Here's my little back end thingamajiggy. This is what it looks like on the back end. So I figured out how to stream on Twitter. So I'm streaming on Twitter today. I don't know if I'll do this going forward, but hello, Twitter viewers. We've got 8 Twitter viewers. Hello, y'all. I don't know how to turn on the chat in there, but I'll have to figure out how to do that. Because my stream earlier didn't have the chat. But here we have a little bit of Griftception. I'm watching myself on Twitter, just like that. Isn't that pretty cool? How cool is that? So, yeah, we are live on Twitter. As you see, there's 3 of me on the screen here. A little bit of Griftception. So, yeah, if you're over on Twitter, leave Twitter and come to Rumble. or on Rumble at Hotep TV. Let's go back in the bag. What we got in here? Hold on. Let me fix my screens. Oh, we've got to play this video. Let's play this video right here. We've got to play this video right here. Hold on. Watch this, y'all. Watch this. Oh, man. Watch this.
Black people, we need to talk. We need to talk. If you're not black, you can stay, but I need to talk to black people. It has recently come to my attention because of a couple of videos that I have done that I don't really know how to tell you all this, but white people, they found Hotep. They found the word Hotep, you guys.
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
Trouble in the land. They done found out. Here we go.
Guys. And they're using it. This is happening. They found Hotep and they know how to use it. I don't know when this happened or who was responsible for releasing this particular bit of intel. Probably the same people that have been inviting everybody to the cookout. But somebody let this out and they got it. Hotep is being gentrified. Now, I realize this is a word that has, you know, some really negative connotations in our circles. So we're not protective of it in the way that we may have been protective of like woke.
Boom. Boom. Y'all heard her admit it, right? Did you hear her admit it? Pay attention to what she just said right here. Pay attention.
In our circles. Hotep is being gentrified. Now, I realize this is a word that has, you know, some really negative connotations.
Has negative connotations in our circles. So in the black leftist circle, Hotep is a negative term.
In our circles. So we're not protective.
So they haven't protected the word. And this is how Hotep Nation was born. And she's admitting this. They didn't protect the term. They made the term a negative term. Okay? They muddied the term. They dragged the term through the mud. They turned it into an ad hominem. And now look, they're mad because white people picked it up.
Of it in the way that we may have been protective of like woke and, you know, all of the many other words that have been gentrified. But I'm just feeling like there's something really wrong in this. I don't know. I mean, how do we feel about
something wrong? Something wrong.
This, like, are we gonna try to take this back? Because we don't like it, but they're not supposed to have it, right? I mean, do they just get to take it? I mean, they're using it right, but they're using it. You know what I'm saying? How are we feeling about this?
Y'all see it? Did y'all see it? Did you guys see that? She says, the black leftists turned into a negative term in their circles. Discarded the term. The Hoteps came along and said, we are sharing this term with everyone, including white folks. We made that decision because you failed to protect the term. Now, since we protect the term, since we own it, when you type in Hotep, Hotep Jesus comes up.
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
So we co-opted the term and we allowed white people to use it. You can't be mad at that. You can't feel no type way about that. You labeled us Hoteps. You called us ashy Hoteps. You discarded the term. You made it a term of castigation. It was once a term of endearment. It was once a warm greeting and a warm exit. And you turned it into a cold callous. That's what you did. That's what you did. You turned it into cold castigation. Playing around with my alliteration here today. This is what you guys did. And now you're upset. Now you're worried because white people are using it. You didn't want it. You didn't want the term. And now you worried about white folks. Now you want to come back around and still and try to get your word back? No, it's ours now.
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
It's ours now. It's too late, sweetheart. It's too late. We done put the thing global. We done made the thing international. We done hit Joe Rogan, Fox News, Megyn Kelly, Tim Cash, you name it. We done made it a term to be applauded. A term to be lauded. A term to be celebrated. And now you're mad and you're calling it gentrification? That's what you're doing? You're calling it gentrification? So it wasn't gentrification when you followed behind your white liberal, your white progressive masters, and they told you to discard your history, to discard your term. That wasn't gentrification? It wasn't gentrification when you took on white ideologies like feminism? That wasn't gentrification? It wasn't gentrification when you turned homosexuality and transsexuality into black culture? That wasn't gentrification of black culture? If anybody's been gentrified, it's the black liberal.
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
If anybody has been gentrified, it's the black progressive. It's the black socialist. You literally took up socialism, which is a white supremacist ideology.
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
When we look at white supremacy, and I hate the term white supremacy, but if we're going to use the term white supremacy, we got to point at what exactly white supremacy is. White supremacy is when you come into a pro-black group and you co-opt it. That's white supremacy. And we saw that happen with Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is a symbol of white supremacy. Where you go in and you co-opt the black community, co-opt the agenda of the black community and create a new agenda for them. Where you send funding in. We just saw Ibram X. Kendi received over $10 million from Jack Dorsey. And then a whole bunch of people got fired so they can study racism, which it just sounds like a money pit. That's not gentrification. When you're getting funded by Rockefeller, Ibram X. Kendi's project funded by Rockefeller, and y'all talking about we got to look at the system of white supremacy. How do you look at the system of white supremacy and get funded by the Rockefeller family? How do you do that? That makes no sense. That's gentrification. Us sharing the word with white people, that's not gentrification. No. Over here in Hotep Nation, everybody's free to speak to speak and think how they feel. We keep a certain code and a decorum amongst ourselves, which I have to say is eons better than the black progressive who likes to dabble in the 7 deadly sins, especially the sin of lust, with their lecherous and treacherous behavior. This is your side. This is your side that has been gentrified. This is your side that has chosen to take up the ideology of communism, the most malignant tumor on the planet. The seed of white supremacy was born in the mind of Karl Marx, really the Knights of the Golden Circle, but Karl Marx takes credit for it, but it's born in the mind of Karl Marx. Karl Marx is a representation of white supremacy. It is through Karl Marx that all nations are destroyed. Marxism. Here y'all come talking about some gentrification. Gentrification. Meanwhile, you guys want to be in white spaces. That's what you want to do. We need to be more inclusive. So you want to be in white spaces. You literally sign up to be gentrified. You sign up to be gentrified. Then got the nerve to talk about the term Hotep being gentrified when at the same time you guys took the term and dragged it through the mud. Black Lives Matter was being gentrified. Gentrified with gender ideology, pronoun ideology, homosexuality, transsexuals. This is your new ideology. This isn't African ideology. This isn't black ideology. Black people didn't come up with transgenderism. That's not our culture. That is Roman culture. That is Greek culture. Homosexuality is not black culture. That is Roman culture. That is Greek culture. That is not our culture. Then you took it upon yourselves and have the nerve to come out and say, if you do not affirm the lives of homosexual and transsexual people, you cannot be pro-black. What do those two things got to do with each other? It sounds like you've been gentrified.
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
It sounds like you've been hanging out with the Romans and the Greeks too long. That's what it sounds like to me. I showed y'all last week what the papyrus said. The papyrus said, in Kemet, we do not tolerate homosexuality. Man does not lay with man. Man does not lay with little boys and little girls. This is the ideology of ancient Kemet, as written on the ancient papyrus. But when we go to Greece and we go to Rome, what do we see? We see pedophilia. We see homosexuality. We see transsexuality. This is a Roman and a Greek culture. This has nothing to do with black people. Nothing. When we go to Ghana today, the West is applying sanctions on countries like Uganda because Uganda is saying no to homosexuality. This is a Western thing. This is a Western phenomenon. This is white people's culture. This has nothing to do with black people. This is a Roman and a Greek thing. And y'all talking about the term Hotep was gentrified. Was gentrified. As you come out here in the world practicing sin. Practicing sin, applauding sin. Telling women to be promiscuous, just creating examples of young women to grow up and be promiscuous because it's supposed to give them power. Being promiscuous don't give you power, it loses your power. Power is when you say no. Power is having the ability to say no. Power is not the ability to open your legs to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. That's not power. If everybody could run through your drawers. What is wrong with y'all? Then you're killing babies. Whose culture is that? That sound like Mayan and Incan and Roman and Greek culture killing babies. Practicing abortions. And y'all applauding this shit. Planned Parenthood literally started by a white supremacist, Margaret Sanger, a eugenicist, somebody who enjoyed the work of Adolf Hitler. These is your heroes. Your heroes wanted to kill black people. They called it the Negro Project. They was trying to kill black people. She starts up Planned Parenthood, and here y'all go. Y'all get funded by Planned Parenthood, awards from Planned Parenthood, and y'all support Planned Parenthood. Then you run up in the court. You get Ketanji Brown Jackson into the Supreme Court. She don't know what a woman is, and she over here voting voting for Roe v. Wade. And we gentrified? No, Hotep's not gentrified. You motherfuckers is gentrified. You motherfuckers forgot what it was to be black. You niggas ain't black.
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
If you vote for homosexuality, you ain't black.
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
It is what it is. How dare you invoke the name Hotep? And then want to circle back and pick it up because white folks picked it up. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? How freaking dare you? Leo Fire, I'm just saying, yo, they don't talk shit about the Hoteps. Don't talk shit about my white Hoteps. Huh? Don't you dare. My white Hoteps are a protected class.
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
It's a protected class of people. These are different from those white pedophiles up in Congress. The transsexuals out in Ukraine giving speeches and shit. We found the one crop of white folks that's good, and now y'all talking about you mad because white folks is using the term. Yeah, I had my master focus today. I'm turned up. They insurgents, Goldstein.
Oh, this a real Hotep brother.
Insurgents. The whole lot of them. Talking about Hotep was gentrified. Hotep was gentrified. As you walk around celebrating being a hoe, who taught you to be a hoe? Who taught you to be a hoe? Black people ain't teach you to be a hoe. Roman and Greek culture taught you to be a hoe. You can't be in Africa and be a hoe. That shit is frowned upon in their society. You get beaten some places. Islam don't tolerate that shit neither. Alhamdulillah. Where the hell y'all been at? Gentrified. We ain't tolerate that shit. We ain't tolerate that shit in Africa. We still not tolerating that shit in Africa. Do I have the... I thought I had the... I ain't saved that. Hold on. Oh, wow. Oh, don't tell me. Remember that presentation I found last week about the Book of the Dead? And I brought that presentation up on the screen. Y'all remember that? Hold on. I just found it. Hold on. Right here. Let's bring it up right here. Put it on the screen for you. What it say, y'all? We went over this last week. What it say, y'all? Huh? What did our ancestors tell us? We not fornicating either. I have not fornicated with the fornicator. I've never laid with men. I have not committed homosexuality. I have not committed adultery. We don't copulate with man boys. I mean, boy girls. Woman, they call it woman boy. He says, question mark, homosexuality? I don't know, I think this might be referring to transgenderism. You should not have sex with a woman boy. Or maybe they're talking about boy prostitutes, question mark, it says here. You do not have sex with a boy. You do not have intercourse with a woman who has a child. Single mamas, you got to go. Africa did not enjoy that. You as a single mama, nobody's touching you. A heathen to touch you. Against illicit sexual intercourse. Do not have sex with a child woman. Pedophilia. It's right there in the ancient papyri. This is how our civilization was living. So who is gentrified? I ask you again. Who is gentrified? Who is gentrified? If ancient Kemet said no. Huh? The hell is wrong with these fools? Talking about, had a nerve to talk about Hoteps and my good white Hoteps. Huh? You know who helped us build Hotep Nation? White folks.
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
White folks. Good white folks. White folks that don't like them Greeks and Romans. Huh? My good Germanic tribes. My good Germanic tribe white folks that don't play that gay shit. Don't play that trans shit, that pedophile shit. That's who's over here at Hotep Nation. Don't play that nasty shit. So who taught you? You modern Roman, you modern Greek, you black Roman. You've been gentrified by pedophiles. That's crazy. We got to pray over that. Alhamdulillah. How you get gentrified by pedophiles? How you get gentrified by pedophiles? That's deplorable. That's disgusting. That's egregious. That's evil and sinful. That's the devil. You niggas is demons. All of y'all are demons. All you black leftists are demons. Co-opted, gentrified to destroy the existence of black people. To erode our culture. To erode our minds. To destroy our kids. and turn our kids into objects of sex. That's what y'all is. That's what y'all promote. Where did you get that from? You got that from Rome and you got that from Greek. Got the nerve to say Hotep is gentrified. Don't you ever talk about Hotep. Don't you ever, I would drag y'all. Can't none of y'all debate me. That's why y'all won't. That's why y'all won't. Because I'll expose your whole agenda. You nasty, undisciplined heathens. Just nasty and undisciplined. Talking about gentrified. Hotep ain't gentrified. Hotep is sanctified.
Alhamdulillah.
Hotep is eternal. Hotep would die. Let me get Hoteps in the chat. Shout out to Hotep Boulay. Retro Neon, $20 super chat on Rumble. Let's go, Hotep.
Hotep.
Appreciate you, my brother.
Oh, this a real Hotep brother.
Appreciate you, my brother. They grifting more than they grifting handlers. Word. You like the new setup? Thank you, bro. I had to clean it up real quick. Every day is another day to get better. Talking about they gentrify. We gentrify Hotep. You didn't want the term. Matter of fact, let's look at what y'all did to the term. Let's look at what y'all did to the term. I typed in Hotep in Google. What does Hotep mean? Look what comes up, reflecting on the rise of Hoteps. This is the article that comes up. Well, y'all come in here. Look. See right here? Black women are referred to as Nubian queens or mothers of civilization. Imagine being upset that you call your women queens and the mothers of civilization. Imagine being upset at that. Who would teach you to be upset with that? Only a white supremacist would tell you to be upset with that. Let's go to the Urban Dictionary. What does the Urban Dictionary say about Hotep? Hotep refers to, y'all see it here on the screen, right? An individual action that centers largely around conspiratorial, often bigoted notions of Afrocentrism or the scholarship of the contribution of African peoples, very specifically black Africans, and the resulting diaspora. For instance, Hotep ideology informs a range of extremist groups. They calling us extremist groups, such as Black Israelites, who are condemned by the ADL. Talking about Nick Cannon, Kyrie Irving, and Kanye West. So Nick Cannon, Kyrie Irving, and Kanye West are all Hotep. Do you see this?
Hotep.
You see this? Hotep views range in problematics from individually silly to revisionist extremist erasure. This is the Urban Dictionary. This is the Black Dictionary. This is what the Black Dictionary says about Hotep. Let's continue. Pseudo Afrocentric individual. They called us pseudo. A moral person, usually with a drinking or drug problem. So we got drinking and drug problems. Tyrone, here's the example they use right here. Tyrone is a Hotep dude trying all the time to be righteous and educated, but he is really unemployed alcoholic who likes to listen to old school music. This is what they did to the term Hotep. This is what they did. Hotep is an adjective, noun, verb. Some might define Hotep as a negative. But the truth is, a Hotep described person is conscious, sometimes misunderstood, could be sensitive to his or her surrounding, and communicates his or her views with certainty. They live a disciplined lifestyle and typically doesn't take breaks for being their righteous selves. It's also another way of describing an orthodox person in any given religion. Do it by the book and seen as strict and sometimes obsessed with living a virtuous life. Example, Jah is a Hotep man. He will not use that spoon if it was used in a pot with meat. He will use natural products. Shout out to Master Focus. Might even sell them. Shout out to Master Focus.
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
He smells like essential oils and frankincense. I got some frankincense on the desk right here. Where's my frankincense? Look. Look. I'm going to show you I'm a real Hotep nigga. I'm sorry. No, the frankincense is over there. This is sweet myrrh. I got sweet myrrh right here. Oh, no, the frankincense is upstairs because I was burning some incense upstairs. So this is closer to the truth, but look how far at the bottom they put this one. This is virtuous. We are a virtuous people, an orthodox people trying to live life by the book, a strict, disciplined life. It says right here, disciplined lifestyle. Y'all want to be undisciplined. Put your pussy everywhere. Get your pussy to everybody. Just free pussy. Then wonder why you got diseases and shit. Y'all want to be fat. Who taught you to be fat? 50 years ago, there was no fat people. 60 years ago, there's no fat people. Go look at the images. Matter of fact, go look at the images from the 20s. Ain't no such thing as a fat person. Hotepping. Digging up obscure facts from the media or internet to try to prove a dumb point or theory is actually factual. This is how they're describing hotepping as a verb. We're conspiracy theorists. Huh? Hotep, from Imhotep, someone who has gotten a little carried away in their support of Afrocentrism. Hotep media created by and for Afrocentrists, generally but not exclusively defined for its presence of pro-black but anti-progress sentiments. Anti-progress sentiments. Really? Anti-progress? And willingness to engage in conspiratorial thinking, pseudoscience, racism, and homophobia. You see it right there?
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
This is Hotep Media. Welcome to Hotep Media, y'all. Welcome to Hotep Media. When they say pseudoscience, what they really trying to say is trust the science. Go get vaccinated. Listen to Fauci. Listen to the white man. Listen to Bill Gates. This is what they saying. Go get your jab. Wear your mask. If that ain't gentrification, I don't know what is. White man got up there and told you be scared of the bug, and you motherfuckers went and got masks and shots. Now you dropping like flies. Conspiratorial thinking. Basically what they're trying to say is we think too much. We shouldn't be thinking. How dare these niggas be thinking? This is what they wrote about us. Hotep nigga. A Hotep nigga is a guy that uses knowledge of conspiracy theories or his consciousness to get women. Obviously, they don't like dating because they want to be homos. So God forbid somebody uses his knowledge, not his money, not his car, not his body, to get women. How do you turn this into a negative? How is this a negative? You're supposed to use your brain to get women. Your women should be attracted to your knowledge base. They hate heterosexuals. Hotep Cliff Notes. It is when someone who is pseudo woke likes to start arguments in comments with copying and pasting most used Hotep phrases and history lessons in long paragraphs as if they wrote them themselves. Hotep is a slang term for a black man or his ideas who is down for the struggle against established powers and for freedom, but only so far as it helps them and no further. They aren't truly principled. They're merely selfish and happen to be in the out-group in their society. So they admit that we are the out-group. They admit it, that Hoteps are the out-group. And that's why I say Hoteps and white conservatives have a lot in fucking common, because we're the out group. White conservatives are the niggas of white people.
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
It's just the facts. You're the out group amongst whites. We're the out group amongst blacks. Why? Because we do too much thinking. Why? Because we involved in the conspiracy theories. Why? Because we want to have our guns. Why? Because we want to have our money. Why? Because we want our sovereignty. Why? Because we want our freedom. Because everybody on the other side is a fucking Marxist. That's some Hotep bullshit, Tyrone, is what they wrote here. So they say Hotep was gentrified. They say Hotep was gentrified. That's what they said. Yet, look at how they talked about us. Look at that. Y'all saw that. Bear witness. Everybody asked me, what's up with Hotep? There's a long history of Hotep. We're going to do a documentary on this shit one day. We're going to do a documentary on this shit one day. But this is where we are. This is where we are. Hoteps can't be controlled. Correct. Famo said this is wild, yo. This is what I'm saying. This is the shit that we was dealing with. This is what we were dealing with. And then now, she want to come back around and talk about some. Look, let's play the video again. Just to after we done gave you all of that, let's watch the video one more again.
Black people, we need to talk. And they got it. Hotep is being gentrified. Now, I realize this is a word that has, some really negative connotations in our circles. So we're not protective of it in the way that we may have been protective of like woke and, all of the many other words that have been gentrified. But I'm just feeling like there's something really wrong in this. I don't know. I mean, how do we feel about this? Like, are we gonna try to take this back? Because we don't like it, but they're not supposed to have it.
So you don't like Hoteps, but as soon as white people pick up Hoteps, now all of a sudden you like, wait, you can't have it. This is the most kiddiest shit ever. That's some shit a little kid does. A little kid, they not playing with the toy over there in the corner. And as soon as somebody go over there and play with the corner, they go, wait, no, my toy. It's like you can't play with both toys at the same time, bruv. Which one you gonna play with? Can't stand these progressives, boy. They're the worst of us.
That have been gentrified, but I'm just feeling like there's something really wrong in this. I don't know. I mean, how do we feel about this? Like, are we gonna try to take this back? Because we don't like it, but they're not supposed to have it, right? I mean, do they just get to take it? I mean, they're using it right, but they're using it. You know what I'm saying? How are we feeling about this?
Then Conscious Lee says no white people are using the term Hotep for real. That's false. That's false. We got real Hotep brothers on this side. And then the cognitive dissonance in the chat. He says, can you imagine a Hotep white man? That sounds like a supervillain. Shout out to all my supervillains in the chat. What's Congress doing? I hear them making noise and stuff. Look like they about to come back in the session any minute now. Let's go back in the Grift Biggie bag. What do we got else? What else do we got in here? Let's look at this. Yesterday we played the Dion clip where you try to say Dion was hard on these boys. Well, here's some of those boys. Let's take a look.
Come off this disappointing season and you guys all get the news. Hey, new coach is coming in, and it's Deion Sanders. What's the reaction?
Ecstatic. Yep.
Yeah, really? I told a lot of people, I was like, there's not one person who could like flip a team better, because who wouldn't want to play for him?
You guys were all in that meeting, the famous meeting where he basically encourages the players who were on the previous team to transfer. Mm-hmm. What is that like?
I mean, he definitely tried to scare some of the people off the team, but, you know, I know as far as us three, we know we belong here.
When you hear a new coach come in and basically say, get in the portal, how does that play out?
I mean, I took it as a challenge. I said he wants us to leave, and I'm determined to stay. And I was confident. I was like, they can't get rid of me. Like, I'm going to make it, so they can't get rid of me.
So all three of you didn't look into transferring at all. You didn't second guess. You guys were determined to stick this out?
Yes, sir. My dad told me, he said, do you want to swim?
You heard he said, my dad.
We're determined to stick this out?
Yes, sir. My dad told me, he said, do you want to swim with the sharks or swim with the fish? And that's what really stuck with me. I was like, I'm going to stay and compete, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. So that's what I did.
Real men. That's how you build real men. Adversity. Fred Casillas said Hotep Jesus, the master villain. I might be. Check this out. Let me put something else on your desk. JP Morgan. Watch this shit. Remember I be telling y'all about JP Morgan? So on the subject of CBDCs, as we wait for Congress to come back in a session, it says during a CBO's panel discussion yesterday, JP Morgan revealed it is participating in the regulated liability network. Another Hotep's been told you moment. But look at this. It says, earlier this month, the UK arm of the Regulated Liability Network, RLN. You guys remember I've talked about RLN. I did a whole presentation on RLN. This is basically architecture of the backbone of a CBDC network, right? And it says the UK arm of the RLN shared the finding of its latest work without mentioning the participants. So before, I remember the RLN was working with certain banks. I think HSBC might have been one of them, and other banks. JP Morgan was never mentioned. It's never mentioned. But they have this meeting at CBOS, which I believe is in Canada. And I think today is the last day of this conference. And JP Morgan reveals they were a part of this test. Now, Congress is in session, and Congress will have you believe, you know, like Maxine Waters got her dumb ass up on the stage. And Maxine Waters basically said this new bill proposal would stunt innovation. Stunt innovation. And then they made other things about how the private sector operates and privacy with the privacy within the private sector, customer privacy. They mentioned all of that. But he failed to mention that this innovation is already in the works. And JP Morgan, the architects of the Federal Reserve, are in on it. They're preparing for a CBDC. Now look at this. Now I want you to see something. I want you to see something, right? JP Morgan has been at the forefront of bank exploration. It says right here, at the forefront of bank exploration of digital currency. They could have put a period at the end of bank exploration, because they have been at the forefront of bank exploration. And the proof is in the pudding. It says right here, JPM coin, Partior, public blockchain deposit token. Secondly, Citi initiated the RLN network. JP Morgan processes $10 trillion in payments daily, making it the biggest player. JP Morgan. Remember I told you about like how dominant this bank is, and when the Fed finally decides to roll something out, other banks will disappear, but JPM won't. Well, let's look at this. What does JPM actually say? We have a rep from JPM. His name is Gary Chan. He says here, my primary goal inside the RLN process is how do we begin to have Regulators understand. So they're the ones training government. Whereas Congress would have you believe that they're going to be the stopgate from the private sector. And, the Article 1, Section 8 says Congress has the right to mint and coin money and all of that bullshit. But who are they taking orders from? Gary Chan just told you. He says it's incumbent on us as industry leaders to guide them on that journey as well. To guide them on that journey as well. Who you think is calling the shots in Congress? Who are the regulators? SEC, FTC, right? And then, of course, Congress. They admit it. They don't hide this stuff. The thing is, people don't read, so they don't have to hide. They can come right out and tell you. But they did try to hide. At first, they didn't tell you who was participating in the RLN, CBDC backbone architecture. They didn't tell you JPM was in there. But now at CBOS, not to be confused with Davos. Excuse me. JPM was right there inside the RLN architecture. Part of these tests. In July, the U.S. RLN published a report involving several other U.S. banks, the New York Federal Reserve Innovation Arm, and MasterCard. Now, when you go listen to the House hearing, what are the House hearings saying? The House hearing is saying, oh, the private sector is the problem and the private sector, and we need to have government do this. Then Maxine Waters gets up there and all she says is, she gets her ass up there and all she says is, China did this and did that. You know who's got a CBDC? China. Since China has a CBDC, we need a CBDC. The Euros are developing a CBDC, and we don't want to be left behind in this great technology. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. This is not a question of innovation and technology. It's not. First of all, these CBDCs are running off of existing technology. So where's the innovation? The only innovation is at the regulation level. It's at the government level. That's the only thing you're innovating is policy. How to change the law to allow you to pull this bullshit. You got people running CBDCs, I believe, off of networks like Ripple, Ethereum, and other various protocols. Let me ask you something. How is it that Jamaica already has a fully functional CBDC? If this is innovation, how does Jamaica already have one? How does Nigeria already have one? Let's see who Nigeria's protocol is run under. Let's see if we can find that. All right, let's do technology. Central Bank of Nigeria. Yeah. I can't. It says, okay, so check this out. New story. I haven't seen this one before. Nigeria seeks partners for tech revamp of its So they want to revamp their Naira. So Bit Inc. developed their technology. All right. Now here's what's funny. Look at this. Look at this. This is what's funny. What's her name? Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters will bring her dumb ass up on the thing and say, this new bill presented by the GOP to stop the CBDC is designed to kill innovation in America. Meanwhile, America, Bit Inc., offices in Draper, Utah, helped create the Africans, the Nigerian CBDC. Right? How come I can't see the type of technology? I need somebody to tell me what technology it was. What the hell is this? They want me to pay Bloomberg, man. Get out of here, man. They always want some shekels. Fuck out of here. Let's go here. Give me another link. I ain't got time for that shit. Yo, who knows what tech the CBDC in Nigeria is working on? Is running off of. They said Bit Inc., right? Well, the description here says, we are the world's leading digital currency experts. We provide central bank digital currency and stablecoin solutions for central banks. This is right here in America. All right? Where's the headquarters? Draper, Utah. This company is out of Utah, bro. And you talking about stunting innovation? Stuff already exists, lady. They're not innovating a damn thing. It looks like they're probably using some sort of distributed ledger technology, some proprietary distributed ledger technology. It seems what it's happening here. Central banks, digital currency management system. Yeah, so they have their own system. Digital currency mint manager. Look at this. They got the dashboard and everything. So Maxine Waters to get her funky ass up there in Congress and tell you that the GOP wants to stunt innovation. Meanwhile, Utah has developed the Nigerian CBDC. Whose company is this now? Now we got to see whose company this is. Gabriel Abid. Now we got to look up who Gabriel Abid is. Here we go. Here we go. World Economic Forum. Uh-oh. Here we go. Barbadian diplomat. Ambassador of Barbados to the United Arab Emirates. Went to school in Canada. Doctorate degree from University of West Indies. Abid established Bit, a technology company that has worked with companies such as Overstock.com. He's based in Abu Dhabi. So running out of Utah, but he's based out of Abu Dhabi. All right. So there you have the guy who is responsible. Here's his face. Let's put his face on the screen just so y'all know what his face look like. There you go. Gabriel Abid. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? There you go. So when Congress gets in session and they talk about, oh, they're stunting innovation. Well, how did all these other countries have a CBDC already? How? Somebody here at cato.org says Nigeria's CBDC was not chosen, it was forced. Basically, it looks like what this article is going to say is they had economic issues, so that's why they had to move to a CBDC. That's pretty much what it looks like here. Because they ran short. They had a cash shortage. So, oh, CBDC. That's the same shit they're going to pull here when they try to pass this to us. They're going to use the same argument. Guaranteed. You know. What's Congress lazy asses doing? Y'all ain't finished lunch yet? What y'all fat asses doing, man? I just hate when people think I'm stupid. That's my biggest issue. When people think I'm stupid, that's like one of my pet peeves. Now, earlier in the hearing, they looked at this document. This is the bill that's in Congress session right now, okay? And it says here, this is to amend the Federal Reserve Act to prohibit the Federal Reserve banks from offering certain products or services directly to an individual, to prohibit the use of central bank digital currency for monetary policy and other purposes, right? Okay, cool. Now, when we went over this last week, I said, I don't know how thorough this bill is to cover every loophole. And then I think it was Lynch got up there to say, Rep. Lynch, he pointed to the description of a CBDC. He said page 13, line 15. We're going to start at 13. Says prohibition on the use of central bank digital currency for monetary policy. The Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System and the Federal Open Market Committee shall not use any central bank digital currency or any digital asset that is substantially similar under any other name or label to implement monetary policy. Now, I said before, when we talk about people like William Jennings Bryan, who served under Woodrow Wilson while the Bretton Woods Agreement, all that stuff was going down. He basically said, I don't know what these people are talking about. They spitting a whole bunch of financial jargon at me. I cannot follow. And then that's how they get, stuff passed, right? Because there's an intellectual barrier. Okay. So William Jennings Bryan left his post, as he should. I don't blame him. Don't want to be responsible for that bullshit. But my point is, when defining what a CBDC is, how do you define it? That has to be clear, precisely clear. I mean, when I say precisely, you got to be able to stand on somebody's strand of hair precise. A strand, you got to be able to hit a hair from 100 yards with a sharpened pencil. That's how precise you got to be, because these shysters are slippery and slithery. They are slippery and slithery. So you got to be super sharp. All right. So he points to this, right? Now, when I heard him say it, I couldn't recall all the verbiage from the bill, even though it was 3 pages. But I said, let me pull the bill up just to verify, because it sounded like he made a good point, which is a point I've always made, is when you're defining things in a bill, if you're not precise, it becomes too ambiguous, becomes too vague, and leaves up too much for interpretation, as we saw with Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, right? Leaves too much up for debate. Now, I pulled the document up because I wanted to see, okay, like you said, page 3, line 15. Okay, I'm looking at that. But the thing is, he stopped. He didn't read the whole line. I'm going to show you what he did. He said, the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System and Federal Open Market Committee shall not use any central bank digital currency or any digital asset. So he stops at or any digital asset. He stopped right there in his argument. And in my head, I'm like, well, does the document actually say that? Let me go verify. And I go look, and I'm like, no, there's more to that sentence. It says, or any digital asset that is substantially similar under any other name or label to implement monetary policy. Now, I will say his argument is valid, because this last part here could be interpreted as ambiguous and vague. Because what does it mean to be substantially similar? How much substance do you need to be substantially similar? Like, this stuff has to be quantified, then codified. You've got to delineate exactly what makes up a CBDC. You had a bunch of experts come in last week in the hearing. You should have consulted them when you wrote this bill. So then what did Maxine Waters do? She came in and she wanted to amend the bill. Then another individual came in and tried to amend the bill. And the way it's just a way to filibuster, right? As we wait for Congress to come back in session, they still ain't come back in session over an hour now. But it is pretty close. It's not as ambiguous as that politician had made it seem, as that House rep made it seem. There is, some decent attempt here. I'm just separating my cables. Some decent attempt here to cover all angles, right? Because what'll happen is this, right? You'll write the bill up, and let's say you stop it right here. You stop it at shall not use any central bank digital currency, right? Well, what is a central bank digital currency? This is now what the rep is saying is that a central bank digital currency can be construed as assets that are currently in circulation or stored at a bank, because technically that is a central bank digital currency. Technically it is. But we know that the conversation is around central bank digital currencies, a new technology. So there is some vagary there where you have to be specific in the technology and the architecture, right? Where I would have said, things using distributed ledger technology. Like if you, so the politician said there's no mention of cryptocurrency here, right? I don't think there needs to be. What you have to do is you have to point to the technology. See, cryptocurrency is a name. It's not a technology. The technology is distributed ledger technology, DLT, or you have RLN, which is what we talked about before, the regulated liability networks. These are two different technical terms. So what you could do is you could say anything similar in architecture to blockchain, regulated liability technology, or any distributed ledger technology, and then have somebody describe what these things are so nothing similar to what they are can be brought about. So I do not think they did a thorough job in this bill to prohibit the CBDC of defining what a CBDC is. Now I'll go to my second point. My second point is they can issue a CBDC and not call it a CBDC. And that would dodge that. That's the loophole, right? Like, this isn't a CBDC. This is a CBGC. Central bank government coin, right? Central bank government currency. This is not a digital currency. This is a government currency, right? They can play games. They can play, word games like that, which is why you have to delineate and specify down to a hair's preciseness what it is exactly that is foreboding. And I think they failed in this. I think they absolutely failed.
Mr. Lieb. Mr. Torres. Ms. Garcia.
Aye.
Ms. Garcia votes aye. Ms. Williams.
Williams of Georgia votes aye.
Ms. Williams votes aye. Mr. Nickel. Ms. Pedersen. Ms. Pedersen votes aye. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman votes aye.
Any member wish to change his or her vote? Any member not recorded? Mr. Rose.
Mr. Rose is recorded as voting aye.
Mr. Timmons.
Mr. Timmons is recorded as voting aye.
Mr. Mooney.
Mr. Mooney is recorded as voting aye.
Any other members wish to change his or her vote or not recorded?
Mr. Gonzalez, you are recorded as not voting. Mr. Gonzalez is recorded as voting aye.
Any other members wish to change his or her vote? Mr. Gottheimer.
Mr. Gottheimer is recorded as voting aye.
Any other member wish to change his or her vote? Not recorded. Mr. Hill.
Mr. Hill is recorded as voting yes.
Gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Mr. Fitzgerald, you're recorded as voting aye.
Mr. Nickel.
Mr. Nickel, you are recorded as voting aye.
Mr. Any other member wish to change his or her vote? Any member not recorded? Clerk will report.
What? Are they voting on this bill now? Is that?
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 42 and the nays are 0.
Majority voting in favor of H.R. 3378
Oh, no,
as
that's not
amended. The bill is ordered favorably reported to the House. Without objection, motion reconsider is laid on the table.
3378.
We'll now take the votes pending on ordering H.R. 5409 as amended, favorably reported. The clerk will call the roll.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Hill. Aye. Mr. Hill votes aye. Mr. Lucas. Mr. Sessions.
All right, they're doing the voting now.
Mr. Posey. Mr. Posey votes aye. Mr. Lukemeyer.
This is not.
Mr. Lukemeyer votes aye. Mr. Huizinga. Mr. Huizinga votes aye. Mrs. Wagner.
There's a bunch of bills in there, as you can see them at the screen: 3378, 5409, 760. You see them all at the bottom of the screen there. So they're voting on the various bills now. I don't know what the vote. I'm waiting for the vote to come in on the CBDC.
Mr. Rose votes aye. Mr. Stile. Mr. Stile votes aye. Mr. Timmons. Mr. Timmons votes aye. Mr. Norman. Mr. Muser. Mr. Muser votes aye. Mr. Fitzgerald. Mr. Fitzgerald votes aye. Mr. Garbarino. Mr. Garbarino votes aye. Mrs. Kim. Mrs. Kim votes aye. Mr. Donalds. Mr. Flood. Mr. Flood votes aye. Mr. Lawler. Mr. Lawler votes aye. Mr. Nunn. Mr. Nunn votes aye. Ms. De La Cruz. Ms. De La Cruz votes aye. Mrs. Houchin. Mrs. Houchin votes aye. Mr. Ogles. Mr. Ogles votes aye. Ms. Waters. Ms. Waters votes aye. Mrs. Velasquez. Mr. Sherman. Mr. Sherman votes aye. Mr. Meeks. Mr. Meeks votes aye. Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott votes aye. Mr. Lynch. Mr. Green.
It's probably some funky shit going on when they all vote unanimously for something. Sometimes I'm a little leery of that.
Mr. Green. Mr. Green votes aye. Mr. Cleaver. Mr. Cleaver votes aye. Mr. Himes. Mr. Himes votes aye. Mr. Foster.
Aye.
Mrs. Foster votes aye. Mrs. Beatty. Mr. Vargas. Mr. Vargas votes aye. Mr. Gottheimer. Mr. Gottheimer votes aye. Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez votes aye. Mr. Caston. Mr. Caston votes aye. Ms. Presley. Ms. Presley votes aye. Mr. Horsford. Ms. Talib. Ms. Talib votes aye. Mr. Torres. Ms. Garcia.
Aye.
Ms. Garcia votes aye. Ms. Williams.
Williams of Georgia votes aye.
Ms. Williams votes aye. Mr. Nickel. Mr. Nickel votes aye. Ms. Pedersen. Ms. Pedersen votes aye. Mr. Chairman.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman votes aye.
54.
Mr. Luckett. Mr. Sessions.
All right,
Mr.
so
Norman.
we're waiting on the vote for 5403. 5403 is the name of the vote. I'm sorry, name of the House bill. 5403.
Mr. Horsford. Mr. Torres.
Any other member wants to change his or her vote? Clerk will report.
All right, what's the next bill they're gonna vote on? So that was Safeguarding American Farms from Foreign Influence Act. I have to look into that bill. That one could be suspicious too. H.R. 760, the Chinese Military and Surveillance Company Sanctions Act. Yo, it's funny because everybody's looking at the J6 hearings today, and I'm like, yo, the House got some serious shit going on today. Y'all looking at J6. Y'all getting distracted. Oh, here's the markup page. Oh, here we go. All right, so we got the markup page. Here we go. Is the memo too.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 44 and the nays are 0.
A majority having voted in favor of H.R. 5409 as amended, the bills are ordered favorably reported to the House. Without objection, motion reconsiders laid on the table. We will now take votes pending on ordering H.R. 5472 as amended, favorably reported. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Hill.
Aye.
Mr. Hill votes aye. Mr. Lucas. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Posey. Mr. Posey votes aye. Mr. Lukemeyer. Mr. Lukemeyer votes aye.
It's an
Mr.
amendment.
Huizinga. Mr. Huizinga.
This was an amendment to the FinCEN Oversight and Accountability Act. Oh my God.
Mr. Williams. Mr. Barr is recorded as voting aye. Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams votes aye. Mr. Emmer. Mr. Emmer votes aye. Mr. Loudermilk. Mr. Loudermilk votes aye. Mr. Mooney. Mr. Mooney votes aye. Mr. Davidson. Mr. Davidson votes aye. Mr. Rose. Mr. Rose votes aye. Mr. Stile. Mr. Stile votes aye. Mr. Timmons. Mr. Timmons votes aye. Mr. Norman.
Look at this. Bank Secrecy Act defined. In this section, the term Bank Secrecy Act means.
Fitzgerald votes aye. Mr. Garbarino. Mr. Garbarino votes aye. Mrs. Kim. Mrs. Kim votes aye. Mr. Donalds. Mr. Flood. Mr. Flood votes aye. Mr. Lawler. Mr. Lawler votes aye. Mr. Nunn.
Wow.
Mr. Nunn votes aye. Ms. De La Cruz. Ms. De La Cruz votes aye. Mrs. Houchin. Mrs. Houchin votes aye. Mr. Ogles. Mr. Ogles votes aye. Ms. Waters.
Aye.
Ms. Waters votes aye. Mrs. Velasquez.
I don't
Mr.
like this
Sherman.
bill either.
Mr. Sherman votes aye. Mr. Meeks. Mr. Meeks votes aye. Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott votes aye. Mr. Lynch. Mr. Lynch
Reporting
votes aye. Mr.
obligations.
Green.
I don't like this one. This looks like it's like strengthening FinCEN.
Mr. Cleaver.
I don't like this bill
Mr.
either.
Cleaver votes aye. Mr. Himes. Mr. Himes votes aye. Mr. Foster.
Aye.
Mr. Foster votes aye. Mrs. Beatty. Mr. Vargas. Mr. Vargas votes aye. Mr. Gottheimer. Mr. Gottheimer votes aye. Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez votes aye. Mr. Caston. Mr. Caston votes aye. Ms. Presley.
So
Ms.
we're at
Presley
the end of
votes
the
aye.
line.
Mr. Horsford.
CBDC Anti-Surveillance Act right
Ms.
here and the
Tlaib.
Digital Dollar
Ms.
Pilot
Tlaib votes
Prevention
aye.
Act.
Mr. Torres.
So that's at the
Ms.
end.
Garcia.
The power.
Aye.
Ms. Garcia votes aye. Ms. Williams.
Williams of Georgia votes aye.
Ms. Williams votes aye. Mr. Nickel. Mr. Nickel votes aye. Ms. Pedersen. Ms. Pedersen votes aye. Mr.
Oh yeah, they
Chairman.
was talking about Russia earlier too.
Mr. Chairman votes
The
aye.
Russia-Belarus
Mr.
Financial
Lucas.
Sanctions Act.
Mr. Sessions. Mr. Norman. Mr. Donalds. Mrs. Velasquez. Mr. Green. Mr. Green.
So we're just waiting for them to get to the end here, which is the CBDC Anti-Surveillance Act, and vote on that and see which way they voted. I know there were some amendments, so let's take a look.
Donalds. Mr. Donalds votes aye.
Any other member wish to change his or her vote?
Okay, here's the amendment.
If not, the clerk will report.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 46 and the nays are 0.
A majority having voted in favor of H.R. 5472 as amended, the bill is ordered favorably reported to the House. Without objection, motion reconsidered is laid on the table. We'll now take votes pending on ordering H.R. 5485 as amended favorably reported. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Hill. Mr. Hill votes aye. Mr. Lucas. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Sessions votes aye. Mr. Posey.
Financial
Mr. Posey
Privacy
votes aye.
Act.
Mr. Lutemeyer. Mr. Lutemeyer votes aye. Mr. Huizinga.
Whoa.
Mr. Huizinga votes aye. Mrs. Wagner. Mrs. Wagner votes aye. Mr. Barr. Mr. Barr votes aye. Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams votes aye. Mr. Emmer. Mr. Emmer votes aye. Mr. Loudermilk. Mr. Loudermilk votes aye. Mr. Mooney. Mr. Davidson. Mr. Davidson votes aye. Mr. Rose. Mr. Rose votes aye. Mr. Stile. Mr. Stile votes aye. Mr. Timmons. Mr. Timmons votes aye. Mr. Norman. Mr. Muser. Mr. Muser votes aye. Mr. Fitzgerald. Mr. Fitzgerald votes aye. Mr. Garbarino. Mr. Garbarino votes aye. Mrs. Kim. Mrs. Kim votes aye. Mr. Donalds. Mr. Donalds votes aye. Mr. Flood. Mr. Flood votes aye. Mr. Lawler. Mr. Lawler votes aye. Mr. Nunn. Mr. Nunn votes aye. Ms. De La Cruz. Ms. De La Cruz votes aye. Mrs. Houchin. Mrs. Houchin votes aye. Mr. Ogles. Mr. Ogles votes aye. Ms. Waters. Ms. Waters votes aye. Mrs. Velasquez. Mr. Sherman. Mr. Sherman votes aye. Mr. Meeks. Mr. Meeks votes aye. Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott votes aye. Mr. Lynch. Mr. Lynch votes aye. Mr. Green. Mr. Green votes aye. Mr. Cleaver. Mr. Cleaver votes aye. Mr. Himes. Mr. Himes votes aye. Mr. Foster.
Aye.
Mr. Foster votes aye. Mrs. Beatty.
Aye.
Mrs. Beatty votes aye. Mr. Vargas. Mr. Vargas votes aye. Mr. Gottheimer. Mr. Gottheimer votes aye. Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez votes aye. Mr. Caston. Mr. Caston votes aye. Ms. Presley. Ms. Presley votes aye. Mr. Horsford. Ms. Tlaib. Ms. Tlaib votes aye. Mr. Torres. Ms. Garcia.
Aye.
Ms. Garcia votes aye. Ms. Williams.
Williams of Georgia votes aye.
Ms. Williams votes aye. Mr. Nickel. Mr. Nickel votes aye. Ms. Pedersen. Ms. Pedersen votes aye. Mr. Chairman.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman votes aye. Mr. Lucas. Mr. Mooney. Mr. Norman. Mr. Mooney is recorded as voting aye.
Sonny
Mrs.
Johnson
Velasquez.
birthday tomorrow. Don't forget.
Mr. Horsford. Mr. Torres.
Any other members to change his or her vote? If not, clerk will report.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 47 and the nays are 0.
A majority having voted in favor of H.R. 5485 as amended, the bill is ordered favorably reported to the House, and without objection, motion to reconsider is laid on the table. We'll now take votes pending on ordering H.R. 5119 as amended, favorably reported. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Hill votes aye. Mr. Lucas. Mr. Sessions. Aye. Mr. Sessions votes aye. Mr. Posey. Mr. Posey votes aye. Mr. Luetkemeyer. Mr. Luetkemeyer votes aye. Mr. Huizinga. Mrs. Wagner. Mrs. Wagner votes aye. Mr. Barr. Mr. Barr votes aye. Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams votes aye. Mr. Emmer. Mr. Emmer votes aye. Mr.
All right, so when I was talking about before how they define central bank digital currency, I had an old document. So it looks like I have the latest one. The latest one has 4 pages. And it says in this section, the term central bank digital currency means a form of digital money or monetary value denominated in a national unit of account that is a direct liability of the central bank. That includes all money. So that's not a good definition. I correct myself from earlier. Strike that from the record. I stand corrected. That does not define a central bank digital currency.
Mrs. Houchin votes aye. Mr. Ogles.
Well,
Mr. Ogles.
It defines a central bank digital currency. It does not define a CBDC, if that makes sense.
Aye. Mrs. Velasquez. Mr. Sherman. Mr. Sherman votes aye. Mr. Meeks. Mr. Meeks votes aye. Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott votes aye. Mr. Lynch. Mr. Lynch votes aye. Mr. Green. Mr. Green votes aye. Mr. Cleaver. Mr. Cleaver votes aye. Mr. Himes. Mr. Himes votes aye. Mr. Foster.
Aye.
Mr. Foster votes aye. Mrs. Beatty.
Aye.
Mrs. Beatty votes aye. Mr. Vargas. Aye. Mr. Vargas votes aye. Mr. Gottheimer. Mr. Gottheimer votes aye. Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez votes aye. Mr. Caston. Mr. Caston votes aye. Ms. Presley. Ms. Presley votes aye. Mr. Horsford. Ms. Talib. Ms. Talib votes aye. Mr. Torres. Ms. Garcia.
Aye.
Ms. Garcia votes aye. Ms. Williams.
Williams of Georgia votes aye.
Ms. Williams votes aye. Mr. Nickel. Mr. Nickel votes aye. Ms. Pedersen. Ms. Pedersen votes aye. Mr. Chairman.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman votes aye.
Any member wish to change his or her vote?
Mr. Lucas. Mr.
Any member not recorded?
Mr. Huizinga? Mr. Huizinga is recorded as voting aye.
Clerk will report.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 47 and 0 nays.
The majority having voted in favor of H.R. 5119 as amended, the bill is ordered favorably to the House, favorably reported to the House. Without objection, motion reconsider is laid on the table.
Okay.
We'll now take votes pending on ordering H.R. 5557. I'm sorry, let me repeat. H.R. 5557 as amended, favorably reported. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Hill. Mr. Lucas. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Sessions votes
Crystal
aye.
said,
Mr.
wouldn't
Posey.
it be quicker to
Mr.
say
Posey
anybody
votes aye.
voting
Mr.
no?
Luetkemeyer. Mr. Luetkemeyer votes aye. Mr. Huizinga. Mr. Huizinga
I'm telling you, whenever you
votes aye.
put
Mrs.
government
Mrs.
in
Wagner
charge of
votes aye.
some
Mr.
shit, you should expect high amounts of inefficiency. Anytime you put government in charge of some shit, you should expect high amounts of inefficiency. Because then, you know, the thing is, it's so inefficient of a system that somebody will go, well, I never voted yes. We asked you, anybody here vote nay? Because technically you could vote like nothing. You can have a non-vote. I forget what they call it. Some neutral shit, right? Decline to vote. But you would think so, right? Like, and why is this stuff not done electronically either? She's writing this shit down by hand. This is...
Mr. Nunn votes aye. Ms. De La Cruz.
The government sucks at everything
Ms. De
they
La Cruz
do.
votes aye. Mrs. Houchin.
Except ruining
Mrs.
other
Houchin votes
nations.
aye. Mr. Ogles. Mr. Ogles votes aye. Ms. Waters? Aye. Ms. Waters votes aye. Mrs. Velasquez? Mr. Sherman? Aye. Mr. Sherman votes aye. Mr. Meeks? Aye. Mr. Meeks votes aye. Mr. Scott?
Yeah, he said no
Mr.
dissenters.
Scott votes
Weird.
aye. Mr. Lynch?
This is what I'm saying.
Mr. Lynch
Watch.
votes aye. Mr. Green?
I want you to watch
Mr. Green votes aye. Mr. Cleaver?
how there's no dissenters, right? And as soon as we get to that CBDC bill, all hell gonna break loose. Watch. Remember I said
Beatty
it.
votes aye. Mr. Vargas?
As soon as we get to HR 5403, all hell gonna break loose.
Mr. Caston votes aye. Ms. Presley? Ms. Presley votes aye. Mr. Horsford? Ms. Talib? Ms. Talib votes aye. Mr. Torres?
Yeah.
Ms. Garcia?
Might as well use paper ballots, right?
Aye. Ms. Garcia votes aye. Ms. Williams?
Williams of Georgia votes aye.
Ms. Williams votes aye. Mr. Nickel? Mr. Nickel votes aye.
So why don't we
Ms.
have
Pedersen?
paper
Ms.
ballots
Pedersen
for
votes
our
aye.
elections?
Mr.
That's a
Chairman?
good question.
Aye.
It's a really good
Mr.
question.
Chairman votes aye.
Any other member wish to change his or her vote?
Mr. Hill, you are not recorded. Mr. Hill, you are recorded as voting aye.
As soon as we're done here, we're going to take phone calls. So you can
Mr.
text
Lucas, Mr. Norman.
text Hotep in your name to 202-596-5631, 202-596-5631. Text Hotep in your name to that number, and we'll get you in on the phone lines right after this voting is done.
Majority having voted in favor of H.R. 5557 as amended, the bill is ordered favorably reported to the House. Without objection, motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. We will now take votes pending on ordering H.R. 5523 as amended, favorably reported. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Hill. Mr. Hill votes aye. Mr. Lucas. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Sessions votes aye. Mr. Posey.
This shit is
Mr. Posey
crazy.
votes aye. Mr. Lukemeyer. Mr. Lukemeyer votes aye.
So-
Mr. Huizinga.
Let me turn her down.
Mrs. Wagner votes
Also, Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan, it says right here in 2021, the National Bank of Kazakhstan began trials for a digital tenge.
Mr. Loudermilk votes aye.
After 2 years of central bank digital currency research and consultation with stakeholders, the project will progress to the next phase with widespread implementation by 2025. So Kazakhstan is next up. I think I told you about this yesterday.
Mr. Muser votes aye. Mr. Fitzgerald. Mr. Fitzgerald votes
So,
aye. Mr. Garbarino.
look
Mr.
out for that.
Garbarino votes aye. Mrs. Kim.
I'm gonna start closing out some windows here.
Donald
Also, I saw something interesting came across my desk here. It says here AmericaFirstPolicy.com, and it says they have here a fact sheet on CBDCs, and it says here President Biden is prioritizing creation of CBDCs. CBDCs have the potential to substantially threaten financial privacy. CBDCs would undermine Americans' financial freedom. Left-leaning political activism by the Fed and Fed regional banks in recent years is a call for alarm, and this issue requires structural reform at the Fed. So I wanted to put this on your desk in case you guys wanted to do more research.
Mr. Caston votes aye. Ms. Presley. Ms. Presley votes aye. Mr.
This number is
Horsford.
wrong. They have to update this. This is no longer the House number for the Anti-Surveillance Act, Anti-Surveillance CBDC Act.
Mr. Nickel. Mr. Nickel votes aye. Ms. Pedersen. Ms. Pedersen
But this
votes
is
aye.
from AmericaFirstPolicy.com. I don't know who
Chairman
this
votes
is.
aye. Mr. Lucas.
Anybody know who this is?
Mr. Huizinga. Mr. Norman. Mr. Huizinga is recorded as voting aye.
They got some pretty cool JavaScript on their site, I'll say that.
Mr. Horsford. Mr. Torres.
Any
That's
member
pretty
wish to
cool.
change his or her vote or is not recorded? Clerk will report.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 47 and the nays are 0.
A majority having voted in favor of H.R. 5523 as amended, the bill is ordered favorably reported to the House. Without objection, motion reconsiders laid on the table. We'll now take votes pending on ordering H.R. 5512 as amended, favorably reported. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Hill.
Russia,
Mr. Hill votes aye.
Belarus
Mr. Lucas.
Financial
Mr.
Sanctions
Sessions.
Act.
Mr.
This is
Sessions
going to
votes
be
aye. Mr.
aye
Posey.
down the
Mr.
board.
Posey votes
Everybody's
aye.
going to
Mr.
agree on
Lukemeyer.
this one.
Mr. Lukemeyer votes aye. Mr. Huizinga.
Everybody's going to
Huizinga
agree on
votes
that
aye.
one. They
Mrs.
want to place
Wagner.
sanctions
Mrs. Wagner votes aye. Mr.
on
Barr.
Russia. Everybody
Mr.
knows
Barr
that.
votes
That's a
aye. Mr.
bipartisan
Williams.
thing.
Mr. Williams votes aye. Mr. Emmer.
There's no
Mr. Emmer
no
votes
shock
aye.
there.
Mr. Loudermilk. Mr. Loudermilk
Let me
votes aye.
close
Mr.
that.
Mooney.
Oh, that's my
Mr. Davidson. Mr. Davidson votes aye. Mr. Rose. Mr. Rose votes aye. Mr.
Can't
Stile.
believe this, man. Well, I
Mr.
can,
Stile
but
votes
that's
aye.
just
Mr. Timmons.
hilarious.
Mr. Timmons
JP
votes aye.
Morgan
Mr.
has
Norman.
been involved in the RLN
Mr.
technology
Muser.
the whole time.
Mr. Muser votes
I've been
aye. Mr.
tracking the
Fitzgerald.
RLN stuff. No mention of JP Morgan.
Mr. Garbarino.
CBOS pops
Mr.
up,
Garbarino votes
and all
aye.
of a
Mrs.
sudden
Kim.
there's some
Mrs. Kim votes
collusion
aye. Mr.
between the two.
Donalds.
Absolutely
Mr. Donalds
amazing.
votes aye. Mr. Flood.
Absolutely
Mr.
amazing.
Flood votes aye. Mr. Lawler. Mr. Lawler votes aye. Mr. Nunn. Ms. De La Cruz. Ms. De La Cruz votes aye. Mrs. Houchin. Mrs. Houchin votes aye. Mr. Ogles. Mr. Ogles votes aye. Ms. Waters. Aye. Ms. Waters votes aye. Mrs. Velasquez. Mr. Sherman. Mr. Sherman votes aye. Mr. Meeks.
Look at this shit.
Votes aye. Mr. Scott.
This guy
Mr.
can't be
Scott
real.
votes aye.
There's
Mr.
no way
Lynch.
this guy's real.
Mr. Lynch
Neuralink
votes
has
aye. Mr.
received
Green.
FDA approval to begin
votes
human
aye. Mr.
trials. Who's
Cleaver.
signing up first?
Mr. Cleaver votes
He said,
aye.
I'm in
Mr.
as long as
Hines.
Elon's in
Mr.
charge.
Hines votes aye.
Yo,
Mr.
Elon's
Foster.
sexuals are
Mr. Foster
weird,
votes aye.
bro.
Mrs. Beatty.
Aye.
Mrs. Beatty votes aye.
They are
Mr.
so
Vargas.
weird.
Mr. Vargas
This
votes
God
aye.
worship
Mr.
of Elon has got to
Gottheimer
go.
votes aye. Mr. Gonzalez.
Look at this. I'm going to
Mr.
show you a
Gonzalez
dope
votes aye.
meme.
Mr. Caston.
Look at this meme.
Mr. Caston votes aye. Ms. Presley. Ms. Presley votes aye. Mr. Horsford.
Says right here, Bill Gates, let's take more let's make more vaccines. No, you will put microchips in our bodies and track us. Elon Musk, I will literally put a microchip in your brain. Laugh my ass off. Nice. This is y'all.
Patterson votes aye. Mr.
Y'all
Chairman.
think
Aye.
y'all
Chairman
couldn't
votes
spot
aye.
control opposition that was right in front of your face.
Mr. Fitzgerald, you are recorded as voting aye.
Absolutely terrible.
Any
Mr.
other-
Lucas?
Any other member wish to change their vote or is not recorded?
Mr. Nunn, you are recorded as not voting. Mr. Nunn
Mooney.
is recorded as voting aye.
Mooney.
Mr. Mooney is recorded as voting
Any
aye.
other member wish to change his or her vote? If not, the clerk will report.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 47.
And the nays? A majority having voted in favor of H.R. 5512 as amended, the bills are ordered favorably reported to the House. Without objection, motion reconsidered is laid on the table. For the next vote, members are in and out of the room, and traditionally in and out of the room on previous votes. Faster just to stick around. We've got 4 votes left.
4 votes left. Next
We'll now
one
take
is
votes pending on ordering H.R. 5524 as amended, favorably reported.
this is the Foreign
call
Affiliate
roll.
Sharing
Mr.
Pilot
Hill.
Program extension.
Mr. Hill votes aye. Mr. Lucas. Mr. Sessions.
I'm going
Mr.
to
Sessions
turn
votes
that down
aye.
a
Mr.
bit
Posey.
right there.
Mr. Posey votes aye. Mr. Lukemeyer.
Hotep Jesus, JPM had to get the go-ahead before publicly supporting it. No, they're the ones giving the
Mr.
go-ahead.
Barr votes aye. Mr. Williams.
They're the ones giving the go-ahead.
Mr. Emmer votes aye. Mr. Loudermilk.
They are the Geppetto of this
Mr.
situation.
Mr. Davidson votes aye. Mr. Rose. Mr. Rose votes aye. Mr. Stile. Mr. Stile.
They're the, this is their the federal. They created J.P. Morgan created the Federal Reserve. They call the shots. They call monetary policies dictated by J.P. Morgan.
Mr. Garbarino votes
Facts.
aye. Mrs. Kim. Mrs. Kim votes aye. Mr. Donald.
Facts. That's a great conspiracy theory that can practically be
Flood votes
proven.
aye. Mr. Lawler.
It can practically be proven.
Mr. Lawler.
It's just facts.
Mr. Lawler votes aye. Mr. Nunn. Mr. Nunn votes aye. Ms. De La Cruz. Ms. De
You
La
know what
Cruz
I'm saying?
votes aye. Mrs. Houchin. Mrs. Houchin votes aye. Mr. Ogles. Mr. Ogles votes aye. Ms. Waters.
Got me a
Ms.
new
Waters
wallet.
votes aye. Mrs. Velasquez.
This
Mr.
one got the
Sherman. Mr. Sherman
this one got
votes
the
aye.
money
Mr.
clip
Meeks.
inside.
Mr. Meeks votes aye. Mr.
You know what
Scott.
I'm
Mr. Scott votes aye. Mr. Lynch. Mr. Lynch votes aye. Mr. Green.
I had to get rid of that
Green
other
votes
one.
aye. Mr. Cleaver. Mr. Cleaver votes aye. Mr. Himes. Mr. Himes votes aye. Mr. Foster.
Aye.
Mr. Foster votes aye. Mrs. Beatty.
Aye.
Mrs. Beatty votes aye. Mr. Vargas. Mr. Vargas votes aye. Mr. Gottheimer. Mr. Gottheimer votes aye. Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez
This
votes
shit is
aye. Mr.
crazy.
Caston.
Yeah, it's theater.
Mr. Caston votes aye.
It's
Mr.
absolute theater,
Ms.
man.
Presley votes aye.
Talking
Mr.
to the
Horsford.
chat now.
Ms. Tlaib.
Could put a
Mr.
beat to this
votes aye.
voting?
Mr.
Yeah, you
Torres.
could.
Ms. Garcia.
Aye.
Ms. Garcia votes aye. Ms. Williams.
Chat, y'all got questions, anything? Go ahead, drop them in the chat now. It's the best time to do it while I'm paying attention.
Ms. Pedersen votes aye. Mr. Chairman.
Big Ron said she needs to walk away from the sandwich. Yeah, that is a big girl.
Mr. Lucas. Mr. Norman.
It's definitely a big girl there.
Mr. Fitzgerald.
You gotta buy a new wallet too?
Mr.
Yeah.
Fitzgerald is recorded
I just
as
copped one. I think it's
voting
cost me
aye.
about $20-something over
Mr.
on
Donalds.
Bezos's
Mr.
platform.
Donalds is recorded as voting aye.
I think it's made in the USA
Mrs.
though.
Velasquez.
The last
Mr.
wallet I bought, I
Horsford.
think, was made in
Mr.
China,
Torres.
but I think this one's made in USA. This one is nice. leather jump off. I like this wallet. This wallet's good. I didn't like the other one because it was metal and it was like making noises and stuff jingling in my pocket. And I like being a ninja, you know. I want to.
The majority haven't voted in favor of HR
I wanna
5524
be
as
able to
amended. The
sneak
bill is ordered
around
favorably
without being
reported to the
heard.
House without objection. Motion reconsiders laid on the table.
Just in case of some
We'll now
bad
move
guys pull
to-
up. All right, what's the next bill?
We'll now take votes on postponed amendments to HR 5403, the
Okay.
CBDC Anti-Surveillance State Act offered by the gentleman from Minnesota. Amendment 1, the question is on the amendment offered by the
go.
gentlewoman from California, the ranking member. The clerk will call the roll.
Maxine Waters.
Mr. Hill. No. Mr. Hill votes no. Mr. Lucas. Mr. Sessions. No. Mr. Sessions votes no. Mr. Posey. Mr. Posey votes no. Mr. Lukemeyer. Mr. Lukemeyer votes no. Mr. Huizinga. Mr. Huizinga votes no. Mrs. Wagner. Mrs. Wagner votes no. Mr. Barr. Mr. Barr votes aye. Mr. Williams.
See, when I come in the building, I can change that.
Mrs. Wagner is recorded as voting no. Mr. Barr is recorded as voting no. Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams is recorded as voting no. Mr. Emmer. Mr. Emmer votes no.
hear
Mr.
it.
Loudermilk. Mr. Loudermilk votes no. Mr. Mooney.
You hear this?
Mr. Mooney votes no. Mr. Davidson. Mr. Davidson votes no. Mr. Rose. Mr. Rose votes no. Mr. Stile.
We
Mr.
had
Stile
A's
votes no.
the
Mr.
whole
Timmons.
time.
Mr. Timmons votes no. Mr. Norman. Mr. Muser. Mr. Muser votes no. Mr. Fitzgerald. Mr. Garbarino. Mr. Garbarino votes no. Mrs. Kim. Mrs. Kim votes no. Mr. Donalds. Mr. Donalds. Mr. Donalds votes no. Mr. Flood. Mr. Flood votes no. Mr. Lawler. Mr. Lawler votes no. Mr. Nunn. Mr. Nunn votes no. Ms. De La Cruz. Ms. De La Cruz votes no. Mrs. Houchin. Mrs. Houchin votes no. Mr. Ogles. Mr. Ogles votes no. Mrs. Waters. Aye. Mrs. Waters votes aye. Mrs. Velasquez.
Aye.
Mr. Sherman. Mr. Sherman votes aye. Mr. Meeks. Mr. Meeks votes aye. Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott votes aye. Mr. Lynch. Mr. Lynch votes aye. Mr. Green.
Oh, this is on the
Mr.
amendment.
Green votes aye. Mr. Cleaver. Mr. Cleaver votes aye. Mr. Himes. Mr. Himes votes aye. Mr. Foster.
Aye.
Mr. Foster votes aye. Mrs. Beatty.
Aye.
Mrs. Beatty votes aye. Mr. Vargas. Mr. Vargas votes aye. Mr. Gottheimer. Mr. Gottheimer votes aye. Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez votes aye. Mr. Caston.
This is basically
Mr.
to
Caston votes aye.
throw
Ms. Presley.
to
Ms.
throw the
Presley
vote
votes
out.
aye. Mr. Horsford.
I mean to throw the
Ms.
bill
Tlaib.
out.
Ms. Tlaib votes aye. Mr. Torres. Ms. Garcia.
Aye.
Ms. Garcia votes aye. Ms. Williams.
Williams of Georgia votes aye.
Ms. Williams votes aye. Mr. Nickel. Mr. Nickel votes aye. Ms. Pedersen.
Yeah,
Ms.
this
Pedersen
bill's
votes
not gonna
aye.
make
Mr.
it.
Chairman.
No.
Mr. Chairman votes no. Mr. Lucas.
Lucas is
Mr.
a
Norman?
no, I think.
Mr. Fitzgerald. Mrs. Velasquez. Mr. Horsford. Mr. Torres. Fitzgerald is recorded as voting no. Mr. Fitzgerald is recorded as no.
If the gentleman will stay for the next vote, it'll be faster. Clerk will report. The
Well-
first three were free. First three were free.
What? How do you not have this process electronic? I don't understand how you couldn't just push this out and they could hit a button that says yes or no on their desk. With this our government is trash. This is highly inefficient. Some girl with a pen and a pencil is
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 20 and the nays are 27.
A majority voting against the amendment. The amendment is not agreed to. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Lynch. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Hill. No. Mr. Hill votes no. Mr. Lucas. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Sessions votes no. Mr. Posey. Mr. Posey votes no. Mr. Lukemeyer. Mr. Lukemeyer votes no. Mr. Huizinga. Mr. Huizinga votes no. Mrs. Wagner. Mrs. Wagner votes no. Mr. Barr. Mr. Barr votes no. Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams votes no. Mr. Emmer. Mr. Emmer votes no. Mr. Loudermilk. Mr. Loudermilk votes no. Mr. Mooney. Mr. Mooney votes no. Mr. Davidson. Mr. Davidson votes no. Mr. Rose. Mr. Rose votes no. Mr. Stile. Mr. Stile votes no. Mr. Timmons. Mr. Timmons votes no. Mr. Norman. Mr. Muser. Mr. Muser votes no. Mr. Fitzgerald. Mr. Fitzgerald votes no. Mr. Garbarino. Mr. Garbarino votes no. Mrs. Kim. Mrs. Kim votes no. Mr. Donalds. Mr. Donalds votes no. Mr. Flood. Mr. Flood votes no. Mr. Lawler. Mr. Lawler votes no. Mr. Nunn. Mr. Nunn votes no. Ms. De La Cruz. Ms. De La Cruz votes no. Mrs. Houchin. Mrs. Houchin votes no. Mr. Ogles. Mr. Ogles votes no. Mrs. Waters.
Aye.
Ms. Waters votes aye. Mrs. Velasquez. Mr. Sherman. Mr. Sherman votes aye. Mr. Meeks. Mr. Meeks votes aye. Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott votes aye. Mr. Lynch. Mr. Lynch votes aye. Mr. Green. Mr. Green votes aye. Mr. Cleaver. Mr. Cleaver votes aye. Mr. Himes. Mr. Himes votes aye. Mr. Foster.
Aye.
Mr. Foster votes aye. Mrs. Beatty.
Aye.
Mrs. Beatty votes aye. Mr. Vargas. Mr. Vargas votes aye. Mr. Gottheimer. Mr. Gottheimer votes aye. Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez votes aye. Mr. Caston. Mr. Caston votes aye. Ms. Presley. Ms. Presley votes aye. Mr. Horsford. Ms. Talib. Ms. Talib votes aye. Mrs. Garcia.
Aye.
Ms. Garcia votes aye. Mr. Torres. Ms. Williams of Georgia.
Williams of Georgia votes aye.
Ms. Williams votes aye. Mr. Nickel. Mr. Nickel votes aye. Ms. Pedersen. Ms. Pedersen votes aye. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman votes no. Mr. Lucas. Mr. Norman. Mrs. Velasquez. Mr. Horsford. Mr. Torres.
Any member wish to change his or her vote? If not, the clerk will report.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 20 and the nays are 27.
A majority having voted against the amendment is not agreed to. There being no further discussion or amendment to the bill, the question now occurs on adoption of the amendment in the nature of a substitute offered by the gentleman from Minnesota. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye.
So,
all those opposed shall signify by saying nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. And the amendment in the nature of the substitute is adopted. The question now occurs on ordering the bill, H.R. 5403, as amended to the reported to the House with a favorable recommendation. Those in favor shall signify by saying aye.
All right, here's the official vote.
All those opposed shall
The other
signify
ones
by
were
saying nay.
for Maxine Waters' amendment.
The ayes appear to have it, and the ayes have it. Recorded vote being requested. All those in favor of recorded vote, please raise your hand. A recorded vote is ordered. We'll get caffeine for the crowds. The clerk will call the roll. This is the final vote of our markup. If you leave, please leave quietly. If you wish to converse quietly. I don't know, whatever. But anyway, please vote and have a merry and great day. Clerk will report.
Mr. Hill. Mr. Hill votes aye. Mr. Lucas.
Aye.
Mr. Sessions.
This is the official vote
Mr. Sessions
right here.
votes aye. Mr. Posey. Mr. Posey votes aye. Mr. Lukemeyer. Mr. Lukemeyer votes aye. Mr. Huizinga. Mr. Huizinga votes aye. Mrs. Wagner. Mrs. Wagner votes aye. Mr. Barr. Mr. Barr votes aye. Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams votes aye. Mr. Emmer. Mr. Emmer votes aye. Mr. Loudermilk. Mr. Loudermilk votes aye. Mr. Mooney. Mr. Mooney votes aye. Mr. Davidson. Mr. Davidson votes aye. Mr. Rose. Mr. Rose votes aye. Mr. Stile. Mr. Stile votes aye. Mr. Timmons. Mr. Timmons votes aye. Mr. Norman. Mr. Muser. Mr. Muser votes aye. Mr. Fitzgerald. Mr. Fitzgerald votes aye. Mr. Garbarino. Mr. Garbarino votes aye. Mrs. Kim. Mrs. Kim votes aye. Mr. Donalds. Mr. Donalds votes aye. Mr. Flood. Mr. Flood votes aye. Mr. Lawler. Mr. Lawler votes aye. Mr. Nunn. Mr. Nunn votes aye. Ms. De La Cruz. Ms. De La Cruz votes aye. Mrs. Houchin. Mrs. Houchin votes aye. Mr. Ogles. Mr. Ogles votes aye. Ms. Waters.
No.
Ms. Waters votes no. Mrs. Velasquez.
No.
Mr. Sherman.
No.
Mr. Sherman votes no. Mr. Meeks.
No.
Mr. Meeks votes no. Mr. Scott.
No.
Mr. Scott votes no. Mr. Lynch.
No.
Mr. Lynch votes no. Mr. Green. Mr. Green votes no. Mr. Cleaver. Mr. Cleaver votes no. Mr. Himes. Mr. Himes votes no. Mr. Foster.
No.
Mr. Foster votes no. Mrs. Beatty.
No.
Mrs. Beatty votes no. Mr. Vargas. Mr. Vargas votes no. Mr. Gottheimer. Mr. Gottheimer votes no. Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez votes no. Mr. Caston. Mr. Gaston votes no. Ms. Presley. Ms. Presley votes no. Mr. Horsford. Ms. Talib. Ms. Talib votes no. Mr. Torres.
Told you.
Members deserve to have their votes recorded, and the clerk deserves a little bit of respect.
Told you. Didn't I tell you it was gonna get? Didn't I tell you it was gonna get spicy?
Clerk will continue.
Mr. Torres. Ms. Garcia.
Told you.
Ms. Garcia votes no. Ms. Williams.
Williams of Georgia votes no.
Ms. Williams votes no. Mr. Nickel. Mr. Nickel votes no. Ms. Pedersen. Ms. Pedersen votes no. Mr. Chairman.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman votes aye. Mr. Lucas, Mr. Norman, Mrs. Velasquez, Mr. Horsford, Mr. Torres.
So what's the official total? Is it going to be a tie?
Any other member wish to change his or her vote? Any member wish to change their vote? All right. Hearing none, the clerk will report.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 27 and the nays are 20.
Ooh.
A majority voting in favor of H.R. 5403 as amended. The bill is ordered favorably to the House. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. I want to thank the staff for today's markup on both sides of the aisle. Majority and minority staff worked diligently on this package. I want to thank the clerk. Madam Clerk, thank you for the good work today and the excellent speed at which you moved. And I want to thank everybody at the clerk's table
people.
on both sides of the aisle.
Good
For
job.
their good work. Staff are authorized to make technical and conforming changes on all measures ordered to be reported today. Members will have two days to file views on each reported measure considered today. There being no further business pending, the committee stands adjourned.
Success, people. Success. That was a successful vote. They voted in favor of 5403. I thought they were going to take a look at the other one. I guess they did not discuss 3712. These are very similar. Digital Dollar Prevention Act, Digital Dollar Pilot Prevention Act, and the CBDC Anti-Surveillance State Act. Very similar. Both serve the same purposes, pretty much, to ban the CBDC. But they voted in favor of 5403. So this has got to move on to the Senate floor. So we'll be following this. Of course, I'll be following this closely. Let's take some phone calls. 202-596-5631. Text that number, and I'll be right back after this short brief commercial break.
Yeah, I can try to get that handled for you. Again, it's only my second day, so if you can give me a second. How am I supposed to do this? How the hell are we supposed to do this by 5 o'clock?
I have no clue.
Is that possible? Hey, do you have the password to... How'd you finish all your work already?
He's not tapped in. How'd you get that done so quick?
They think they're gonna be able to budget that?
It's money. That's money right there, you understand? You guys finished your work 6 hours early?
He's not tapped in.
Goldstein on the line. What up, Goldstein?
What's happening? What is happening?
What happened with Rumble? You said Rumble's acting up?
Yeah, it's
freezing?
off by it's off quite a bit. It's freezing and shit. It's not doing the you know how it's usually ahead of YouTube?
Yeah.
It's quite behind.
And it's freezing too.
Yeah.
I do see that.
Motherfucking Rumble.
They gotta get this
But
shit
yeah,
together.
Yeah. Explain to me like I'm 5 what I just watched right there.
Okay, so HR 5403, as presented by Rep. Emmer, is basically looking to ban any implementation of a CBDC. And then they had 2 sets of vote. One of them was based on, well, 3 sets of votes. One was an amendment by Maxine Waters, and another one was an amendment by another gentleman. And that's where you heard all those no's come in. So the no's were shooting down those amendments to 5403, shooting down the other no to the other amendment. And then it just left 5403 as amended. And then they had a vote on that. It was 27 ayes versus 20 no's. So 5403 is going to move ahead to, I think, the Senate floor.
Okay, and that's
to ban
that's a good
CBDC.
thing?
That's a good thing. Yeah, they want to ban CBDCs. Now, I will say this. I cannot definitively say that this vote is a good thing because these motherfuckers are some slicksters, right? So there could be double implications here. But for so far, how I'm looking at it, this is good news, and the House made the right decision.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So we're
Yeah,
good to go.
Yeah, I lost track of what the fuck was going on, like around the third or fourth vote. I was like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck's going on anymore.
Yeah, it gets confusing real easy. System's not efficient at all. And then you see people are walking out in the middle of a vote like, yo, like, we paying y'all to do a job and y'all walking out in the middle of a vote? Like, what could you, if a job is 9 to 5, it ain't 5, what could you possibly be doing that you got to leave in the middle of a vote?
Ridiculous. Should have been fired on the spot. Fuck it.
Facts. Fired on the spot. Absolutely.
Man, now, motherfucking Hotep.
Oh, man, you see what they did?
Oh, my God. First, I want to say this. That was a conscious lead post.
Yeah.
I used to regularly stomp that nigga's head in on TikTok back in 2018, 2019.
Really? Why?
Regularly, because he's a motherfucking insurgent, just like that bitch he posted. That's why. That nigga is a fucking insurgent. That's one of the most homo-loving niggas you will ever meet.
Is he?
And let me, yeah. And let me tell you this. This nigga is still, to this day, what? Maybe, I don't know, 16, 17 hours ago, still defending Brick Bitch. So that just tells you where the fuck he's at mentally.
Who? Oh, the Brick Bitch? Oh, the bitch that got hit with the brick, allegedly? He's defending her?
Still defending her.
Oh, yeah, he done lost his mind.
Yeah, this nigga is one of them, bro. He's as far left as he gets.
Oh, he's a leftist.
Big time leftist.
Wow.
And I used to stay tearing his ass up on a regular. Every day he would post some bullshit and I'd be right there to undermine whatever fucking traction he got. This nigga didn't hit 2 million followers till long after I got suspended off the motherfucking platform.
He's got 2 million followers off that Griff?
Yeah, this nigga worked for the Young Turks and shit now.
What?
Yeah, but I was tearing his ass up long before any of that happened. You know what I mean? Because he would stay posting some dumb shit, and I'd be right there to be like, nah, don't listen to this insurgent-ass Negro. Do not listen to this insurgent.
So wait, he's pro-gay agenda?
Pro-gay agenda, pro-fucking feminism, pro-every goddamn leftist trope you could think of. This nigga's right there supporting it all, holding that shit on his back.
That's insane. That's absolutely insane.
The little catchphrase. Research over me search. Man, get the fuck out of here. He's a goddamn clown, and half the world knows it. The other half is snowed by your dumb ass because you talk slick. You know what I mean? Couldn't out-talk me, though.
I heard people say he was like the left Hotep Jesus. And I'm like, I don't think that.
That's what people do say. I'm not even...
You've heard that before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think that's accurate because that means I would have to be like a regular at like, you know, Fox, and basically I'd have to be in line with Candace Owens and the rest of the conservatives, and I'm not.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't.
Yeah, they say that because I'll give it to him. The man's got, he can talk well. He's got a little swagger about himself, whatever. You know, but just like any good fucking pimp, he will lead you down the road to perdition.
Right.
So I used to stay right there and just be like, nah. You know, he used to catch the blues from me, this other nigga named Topher Town, before he went just full MAGA and just lost his goddamn mind. And a few other niggas used to be fucking that nigga up. But let me tell you, this is the beginning, because with him having a hand in it, plus the way that bitch presented it, this is the beginning of the insurgency into Hotep. That's what this isn't no bitch talking about, oh, it's ours, but we don't like it, but we want it because We just don't want white. Nah, that's what it's being presented as. What's going to happen is these motherfuckers are going to start a campaign to revitalize and revamp what Hotep means into a more leftist, dumbass perspective, and they're going to usurp that term just like they did with woke. This is the beginning of that.
I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah. Now, because they know it's getting too much traction, nigga, you want to fox with that shit. It don't get more traction than that.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's too much traction. They know this. They know it to be a very powerful term. You know what I mean? So they're going to have these leftist idiot motherfuckers be like, oh, look, white folks is fucking with it. We need to reclaim it. They'll reclaim it, like I said, repackage it into some dumb shit, sell it to their white community. Then you'll start seeing bitches on The View using that shit, and it's a wrap.
They're going to have the first gay Hotep.
That's what they're going to have. Watch. You're going to see it over the course of the next couple months. Like I said, this nigga done got a hold of it. That's by design. That nigga is as insurgent as it gets. He works for them people, bro. Like, literally.
Right. He's getting a check.
That nigga's on the side like a motherfucker. And it's always, here's what's funny. These leftist motherfuckers always jumping out there talking all this pro-black shit, right? And your wife ain't got a lick of black in her.
Who? Whose wife?
Conscious Lee.
Wait.
Mr. Pro.
What's his wife?
Mexican. Don't got a lick of black in her. My wife ain't 100% black, but I'm not 100% black. You know what I mean? But at least she got half. This nigga's wife that has none. What can you be that goddamn pro-black consciously and not have a black wife? Or at least a wife with some black in her.
Right.
Stop it. Paris, you know Paris on Twitter?
Mm-hmm.
She was on his helmet about that shit not too long ago.
Was she?
Yeah. But yeah, this nigga's a joke. He's a clown. He's not to be listened to. Anything he posts, best believe that shit came from motherfucking Langley right off the fucking printer. Right to that nigga's page. Whether it's TikTok, whether it's fucking Twitter, don't matter. But I'm telling you, this is the beginning of the insurgency, bro, into Hotep.
We're going to have to be on the lookout. Hey, chat, we got to be on the lookout. Be on guard. Who knows what they about to try with the Hotep name, but we're going to go down fighting.
Yeah.
We're not letting go without a fight.
This can be very much defeated. What has to happen is that all the shit that they said that a motherfucker was in that insurgent-ass dictionary, motherfuckers got to be that times 10.
Yes.
Homophobic, all that shit.
Conspiratorial.
That way they cannot, absolutely under any circumstances, rebrand this shit. It will be common knowledge that, yeah, them is some hate-filled niggas. Yes, we are. We hate unrighteousness. We hate unrighteousness. We hate fucking infidelity. We hate insurgency. We hate all that shit with a passion. I don't want anyone to even get confused that, oh, they even tolerate that. Like, there's no hatred. That's what we have for all that shit. That's how you combat it.
You're going to put our hate guard up. Hate guard going up ASAP. Jabari, $5 soup chat. What up, Jabari? He said, these clowns will claim Ancient Kemet was gender neutral, respected all religions and faiths, and was super progressive. Yeah, this is the dumb shit they be on. Rewriting history to match some Marxist bullshit.
Yeah, big time. Listen, that nigga boy, I used to have this nigga making TikTok in Burger King bathrooms, hot in the motherfucker, stuttering. Talking about how much he hate my ass. This nigga was in a Burger King bathroom. He couldn't even wait to get home. And I don't even say nothing about him. I just dismantled the shit that he says. And this nigga talking about fuck you, you's a coon, you all this other shit in a Burger King bathroom. Who the fuck does that? You couldn't even wait till you got home, nigga. You out with your family, you know what I mean, with your half Mexican children and all that other good shit, and you couldn't even wait to get home? Come on, man.
Because he knew he was being exposed and he had to do damage control.
Big time damage control. But yeah, that's all I really
well,
got.
I'm glad we got you on our side in this battle coming up. Thank you for the warning. We're gonna keep our eyes open, but we're not going down without a fight. We fighting to the death.
Hell yeah, we is.
You know what I'm saying?
Right, bro.
All right, man.
Rest of the day, Hotep and Bill.
Hotep and Bill. Goldstein on the check-in. Bars as usual. Rumble done dumbed out. I'm just going to go ahead and just end the Rumble stream because everybody's saying the Rumble stream's broken anyway. So we're just going to go ahead and kill the Rumble stream. I'm just wondering, is that a me thing or is that because I'm, multi-streaming from, to different platforms, right? So YouTube's not having a problem, but I'm also streaming to Twitter. And is Twitter having a problem? Looks like Twitter is streaming just fine. It looks like it's just streaming just fine. So who knows what's going on with that stream. But yeah, I'm streaming to Rumble, and I'm going to stop the Rumble now. Rumble can stop. So maybe that's a Rumble issue. I don't think Twitter had any issues. It looks like Twitter is flowing just fine. But I'll double check that in a little bit. Hey man, I had to close the phone calls. I got to get back to daddy duties. QR code you see right there on your screen get you the discount to Master Focus. Link in the description box below. It's basically half off when everything's all said and done. You will see the discount code applied at checkout. Use the QR code, the link in the box, or type in Grift Report to get your brain boosters, restore your brain health for supreme memory recall, focus, concentration, and flow. Just be flowing through your day. It's a superpower right there. Unlock your own superpowers with Master Focus. Achieve Master Focus. Try masterfocus.com. Like I said, QR code on your screen, link in the description box below, or the coupon code Grift Report. It's a wonderful presentation today. I'm glad we covered what we covered. The important things in life, not the unimportant things. As always, Grift Report will be back here tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Time, because there's no Standard Time anymore, something like that. Eastern Time. So I'll see you then. And Chrissy Mayer is going to be joining the platform on Friday, so look out for that. Really, really awesome and funny discussion. And tomorrow is Hotep Thursday. I'll see you soon. Hotep and Bill.
Yeah, I can try to get that handled for you. Again, it's only my second day, so if you can give me a second. How I'm supposed to do this? How the hell are we supposed to do this by 5 o'clock?
I have no clue.
Is that possible? Hey, do you have the password to... How'd you finish all your work already?
He's not tapped in.
Hotep and Bill.
How'd you get that done so quick?
They think they're gonna be able to budget that?
It's money. That's money right there. You understand? You guys finished your work 6 hours early?
He's not tapped in.